Am I the a-hole for telling my wife the lock on my daughter's door does not get removed until my brother-in-law and his daughters are out of our house? Because honestly, it's not just about the lock. It's about everything that led up to this point. The constant invasion of privacy, the favoritism, the way my daughter has been pushed aside in her own home. And now, I'm the bad guy for putting my foot down? Let me explain how things got to this point. It all started about 10 months ago when my brother-in-law, Sammy, went through a nasty divorce. I'm talking about one of those divorces where the couple just tears each other apart, and in the end, they're both left in pieces. Sammy had been married for about 12 years, and when it fell apart, it really fell apart. He lost everything. The house, the car, his job was already shaky, and the divorce just finished him off. He was left with his two daughters, Olivia and Sloane, who had just turned 18. Naturally, Sammy needed a place to stay. My wife, his sister, offered to let him and the girls move in with us. She didn't really ask me, but I didn't argue either, because I knew Sammy had nowhere else to go. His own parents wouldn't take him in, and none of his friends were in a position to help. It was supposed to be temporary, a couple of months until he could get back on his feet. Well, 2 months turned into 4, then 6. Now, here we are almost a year later, and there's no sign of Sammy leaving anytime soon. And to make matters worse, ever since they moved in, things have been tense, really tense. Let me give you some context. My wife and I have a daughter, Zoe, who's 16. Zoe's always been independent, mature for her age. She's not the type to cause problems or stir up drama. But Olivia and Sloane, they are the complete opposite. Ever since they came into the house, it feels like they've been walking all over Zoe's space and privacy. The girls aren't close. They've never been. Zoe's more reserved, while Olivia and Sloane are extroverted, loud, and, frankly, entitled. It started small, with Olivia and Sloane borrowing things from Zoe's room without asking. They'd walk in, grab some makeup, maybe a shirt, and leave. Zoe, being polite, didn't make a fuss at first. But then it started happening more and more. One day, Zoe came to me, clearly upset. "Dad, they're in my room again," she said, frustration evident in her voice. "They took my phone charger and Olivia borrowed my jacket without even asking." I sighed. "Have you talked to them about it?" "I've tried, but they just brush it off like it's no big deal." I promised her I'd talk to them, and I did. I sat them down and told them they needed to respect Zoe's space and ask before taking her things. I thought that would solve the problem, but I was wrong. Things only got worse from there. A few weeks later, Zoe was nearly in tears when she came to me about her school laptop. One of the twins had borrowed it without asking and misplaced it. Zoe had a major assignment due, and now she couldn't find her laptop anywhere. When I confronted Olivia and Sloane, they acted like I was making a big deal out of nothing. "We were just borrowing it," Olivia said, rolling her eyes. "Zoe needs to chill." "She can find it later," Sloane added. "It's not like we broke it." I was furious, but my wife brushed it off as typical teenage girl behavior. "They're just being girls," she said. "It's not like they're doing it on purpose." I disagreed. Zoe was upset, and I could tell this was starting to take a toll on her. She began withdrawing more, spending less time in common areas, and locking herself in her room whenever Olivia and Sloane were around. I could see the stress building, but my wife seemed oblivious. To her, this was just sibling rivalry. The final straw came when Zoe saved up for over a month to buy a $60 MAC makeup kit. This wasn't just any makeup kit. It was something she had been dreaming about for months. She worked hard to save up the money, and when she finally bought it, she was so excited. She showed it to me the day she got it, and I could tell it meant a lot to her. A couple of days later, Zoe came home from school and found the makeup kit on her bed. Only it wasn't in the pristine condition she had left it in. The shades were all mixed together, the brushes were dirty, and it looked like someone had been playing with it. Zoe was devastated. "Dad, look at this," she said, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. Sloane took my makeup kit and ruined it. I saved up for this for so long, and now it's ruined. I could see the tears in her eyes, and it broke my heart. Zoe rarely cried, but this was too much for her. She felt disrespected, violated even. This wasn't just about makeup. It was about her personal space, her boundaries, and the fact that Olivia and Sloane clearly didn't care about either. I immediately went to my wife and told her what had happened. Her response? "I'll talk to Sloane. I'm sure she didn't mean to ruin it." Talk to Sloane? That wasn't enough. Zoe's belongings had been repeatedly disrespected, and now something she had worked hard for was destroyed. I told my wife we needed to do more than just talk to her nieces. But my wife wasn't having it. "You're making this a bigger deal than it needs to be," she said. "They're just borrowing things. Zoe can buy another makeup kit." Another makeup kit? Like it was some cheap item you could pick up at Walmart? That's when I knew I needed to step in. Zoe's privacy had been invaded for too long, and no one seemed to care. So, I went out and bought a lock for her bedroom door. She needed to feel safe and secure in her own space, and if a lock was what it took to make that happen, then so be it. When Sammy and his daughters saw the lock, they were livid. The twins acted like I had committed some unforgivable crime. "Why would you put a lock on Zoe's door?" Sloane demanded. "We're family. We shouldn't need locks between us." Olivia chimed in, equally angry. "You're treating us like criminals. We're not stealing anything. We're just borrowing." "Borrowing without permission is stealing," I shot back. "You've been in Zoe's room, taken her things, and ruined them. She deserves to have her privacy respected." Sammy, of course, took their side. He acted like I was the one being unreasonable. "My daughters aren't thieves," he said, his tone dripping with indignation. "It's normal for girls to borrow each other's stuff. You're treating them like criminals and it's not right. If Zoe has a problem, she should just talk to them about it." "She has talked to them," I replied, my patience wearing thin. "She's talked to you, and nothing has changed. This lock isn't coming off until Olivia and Sloane learn to respect Zoe's privacy." Sammy scoffed. "Zoe needs to stop acting like a spoiled brat. She's buying expensive makeup and acting like she's too good for her cousins. Maybe you should take a closer look at her behavior." That was it. I'd had enough. "This lock stays on until you and your daughters are out of this house," I said, my voice firm. My wife was furious. She accused me of being heartless and implying that I wanted to kick her brother and nieces out. "They have nowhere else to go," she said. "How can you be so cold?" "I'm not cold," I replied. "I'm protecting our daughter. She deserves to feel safe in her own home." The tension in the house has been unbearable ever since. My wife is giving me the silent treatment, and Sammy and his daughters barely speak to me or Zoe. They all act like I'm the villain in this situation, but I don't see how I'm wrong for wanting to protect my daughter's privacy and her belongings. Zoe is still upset, but at least she feels safer with the lock on her door. She's been spending more time in her room, away from the chaos, and I can see that it's taken a toll on her emotionally. She used to be so open and confident, but now she's withdrawn and anxious. I hate seeing her like this, but what can I do? The worst part is that my wife is acting like I'm the one causing the problems. She keeps saying that I'm overreacting and that I'm driving a wedge between our families. But how can I sit by and let this continue? Sammy and his daughters have completely disrespected our daughter, and my wife refuses to see it. It's gotten to the point where I don't even know if our marriage will survive this. I've tried talking to my wife, explaining that Zoe's well-being should come first, but she just doesn't get it. She's too focused on defending her brother and nieces to see how much this is hurting our daughter. I'm at a loss. Am I the a-hole for standing up for Zoe, for putting her needs first? Or am I really overreacting like my wife says? All I know is that I can't let this continue. Zoe deserves better than this,